Straight ahead, a divided GOP. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Governor Greg Abbott are split over a ban on THC products. What Republicans hope to accomplish on this issue that is dividing the party. In the spotlight, with a new Republican heading the Texas Comptroller's office this week, two other Republicans who want the job tell us why they would be best for taxpayers. And bombing Iran, Democratic and Republican members of Congress from North Texas discuss whether Iran can be trusted not to rebuild its nuclear weapon sites after the U.S. attack. I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Good Sunday morning to you. Hope you are having a great weekend. We begin with Governor Greg Abbott's down-to-the-wire veto of Senate Bill 3, the ban on THC products in Texas. He rejected the bill after 11:22 p.m. last Sunday, less than 40 minutes before the midnight deadline. Abbott said he vetoed the measure because of legal concerns, saying, quote, "If I were to allow Senate Bill 3 to become law, its enforcement would be enjoined for years, leaving existing abuses unaddressed. Texas cannot afford to wait." Knowing that it faces a lengthy battle that will render it dead on arrival in court would hinder rather than help us solve the public safety issues the bill seeks to contain. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who pushed for this bill during the regular session, didn't hold back about the governor's veto.
One can only come to this conclusion, which surprises me. The governor of the state of Texas wants to legalize recreational marijuana in Texas.
Now, the governor's press secretary responded with a statement that said in part, quote, "Governor Abbott has always shared the lieutenant governor's desire to ensure that THC products are not sold to our children and that the dangerous synthetic drugs that we have seen recently are banned." In his veto proclamation, the governor cited a similar Arkansas law that was challenged in the courts and had been held up. But last week, a federal appeals court overturned a lower court's ruling that blocked that law from taking effect. In a post on the social media platform X, the lieutenant governor cited the ruling, saying, quote, "All we have to do is pass SB 3 just like we passed during the regular session." The governor responded on X saying, quote, "Even though the Arkansas law was not plagued with the same legal defects as the Texas bill, it still was unenforced for 2 years and will be further tied up in court for years to come." We spoke with the author of the Texas bill, State Senator Charles Perry of Lubbock.
It's the governor's prerogative to veto bills, and you never know which ones are going to draw a veto. He raised some legitimate concerns in his proclamation as to why he got to where he did. And I have all the confidence in the world that we will alleviate and address those concerns in special session in fairly short order. Today and this week, in fact, has only reaffirmed the state's ability and right to regulate hemp, aka THC products. So we're in a good position. SB 3 is on solid ground going forward. We will have a fairly, my prediction would be is we will have something fairly close to what SB 3 did.
The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed that bill being blocked by a lower court. Does that clear the way for the Arkansas ban on THC products?
Yeah, it absolutely does. So all the Arkansas ruling does today is only reaffirm what has been federal law under FTA regulations and many opinions to the side that Texas and all the states combined and states that have already banned it have the legal right to do it. And that's where we're at. And it only puts SB 3 more and more on solid ground. And to be clear, when you hear this industry talk about regulations, they're only interested in regulations that allows them to do what they're doing today. And that's to perpetuate a recreational marijuana market. And Texas isn't going to go there. Even if the legislature choose to, quote, regulate it, I am certain, based on the governor's proclamation, that we will still ban, and he followed up with a statement after his proclamation, we will still ban synthetic. And if you ban synthetic THC in this marketplace, these business models do not survive. To be clear, the governor came back out and said, I am for banning synthetic THC, which was the heart of SB 3.
So you would be good with that?
Absolutely.
Only 2 Republicans in the House voted against the ban on THC products, and I spoke with one of them, Representative Brian Harrison.
I believe I was the only elected Republican in the legislature to call on the governor to veto SB 3, and I did that 3 weeks ago. So I don't think, I certainly had no heads up what he was going to do or not do, but it was unfortunate that the legislature passed a bill that in my opinion, was massively government overreach. It was marching us in the direction of California-style nanny statism, and it was going to force adults to make a very horrible choice. I mean, these are patriotic, freedom-loving Texans who either want or relied on many of these products into either the very dangerous, deadly black market or to much more highly addictive pharmaceuticals. So it was a bill that needed to be vetoed.
I mean, why did all the other Republicans go for it, do you think? And why were you so, because this, according to what they say, the supporters of this, are dangerous products, and that it can hurt Texans.
But we have lots of ways of dealing with lots of dangerous products right now. I mean, we deal with alcohol and we deal with tobacco, which kill far more people than these hemp products. I can recognize a bill that goes way too far towards big government, liberalism, progressive style governments, and I will never let, to the extent that I have anything to do with it, I will never let the state of Texas become a nanny state, and that's why I was proud to oppose it.
The governor, in his veto, said that this was going to be tied up in the courts. Yeah. And he cited a lot of legal reasons for this. And he said, you know, children don't need to have access to this. He wants there to be heavy regulation. Do you agree with that?
Well, let me make this point. I agree with the goal, the purported goal of SB 3, which is to protect children from potentially dangerous products. Of course, that's a goal that I share, and I share it strongly. And I think if we want to treat this stuff maybe perhaps more similarly to the way we deal with alcohol and tobacco, with certain age restrictions, that's something that I would be welcome a discussion about, but SB 3 just went too far.
What do you think is going to happen in this special session?
I have no idea what's going to happen in the special session, because I think the latest I heard from the Lieutenant Governor is that he plans to just put SB 3 back on the floor and pass that again. So I do not know what type, if any, agreement will be reached.
A poll by the Texas Politics Project at UT Austin shows overall 53% oppose the ban on THC products, 31% support it. Among Republicans, it's a much closer margin, but opposite. 46% say they support the ban, while 39% oppose it. Besides Senate Bill 3, the governor vetoed 25 other bills. Up next, with the new Republican heading the Texas Comptroller's office this week, 2 other Republicans tell us why they also want the job when Eye on Politics returns. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. On Tuesday, former Republican State Senator Kelly Hancock of North Richland Hills is set to become the acting Texas Comptroller. He was hired by outgoing Comptroller Glenn Hager to become the chief clerk, which now paves the way for him to lead the agency. Hancock also announced he's running for the job in the Republican primary next March and was backed by Governor Abbott. We heard from Hancock on last week's program about why he's running next year to keep his job. 2 other Republicans, former State Senator Don Huffines of Dallas and Texas Railroad Commissioner Christy Craddock, are also running in the GOP primary for Texas Comptroller. We spoke with both of them, and we'll start with Craddock on what separates her from the other 2.
First and foremost, I'm a railroad commissioner. I've just won my 3rd election. So I'm the only statewide candidate who's won a primary. In fact, last cycle, I had 4 people in my primary against me, and I won without a runoff. In my mind, first and foremost, as you walk into any business, any agency, you audit and see what is going on at that agency. You want to make sure you've got those conservative principles that we've got at the Railroad Commission. How long is it taking to audit? How long is it taking to get refunds back to people? So I think those are real specifics that we need to make sure we're doing for taxpayers in the state. You're talking about 2 people who've worked with the legislature. Great. They've been in the legislature. I've worked with them for the last 12, 13 years. And I think if you look at what we've managed to do at the Railroad Commission, we've strengthened an agency, made it more responsive to people because we're now more transparent and more efficient as an agency.
I was looking on your website, and one other thing that you're talking about on there is having a local government efficiency task force. What exactly does that entail?
So look, that's to me where you go audit local government. So if you're a school board member and you've been asked, you decide you need more money for your school district. $1 billion bond is a lot of money for anybody, by the way. Doesn't have to be $1 billion. Say it's 200 million. Pick the number. Those are high dollars for anybody who's sitting on a school board. That's a lot of money for people. Before you put that bond out, in my mind, you come ask, or you get volunteered in, that the comptroller comes in and audits that school district and says, look, these are where you're spending your dollars wisely. These are some opportunities you have to spend your dollars better. And maybe your $200 million bond could be a $100 million bond, and you can save tax dollars money, number one. Maybe you don't need that bond by the time you're finished, but at least spend those tax dollars better.
One new function of the Texas Comptroller's office is to stand up and establish this $1 billion school choice program that lawmakers just passed. And I'm wondering, how important is it to you that this be put in place properly, put in place on budget, on time, so that it can go into effect in the 2026-27 school year, and that it be easy to navigate and access for Texas parents?
Well, look, I think that's a priority. The legislature's passed school savings accounts, education savings accounts. I'm excited by it, by the way. I think it gives other kids of everybody all across the state an opportunity. But if we don't do it right in the state, then we're going to have a real problem and people will be mad, and they should be. And it's real dollars. $1 billion is a lot of money. And this isn't an easy program to implement. You've got to understand procurement. You've got to go out and get those bids and get it implemented really quickly. If you don't have it implemented by next March, when people are finding out and making decisions about where their kids are going to school for 2027, we're behind and the program's not been implemented well. So I'm hopeful that the Comptroller's office and others that have to work on this project are doing it well. If not, when I get to be Comptroller, we're going to have to fix some issues.
Don Huffines, who is endorsed by Senator Ted Cruz, tells us why Republican primary voters should give him the nod.
I'm going to follow Donald Trump's leadership skills, and we're going to bring his sense of urgency to Austin, Texas, to root out fraud, waste, and abuse in our government.
Is there a lot?
Well, we're going to find out. I can tell you that. I'm going to doge the state of Texas. That's my campaign.
Last week, as you know, now former state senator Kelly Hancock was announced as the new chief clerk in the Texas Comptroller's office. On July 1st, he's going to become acting Texas Comptroller. And you posted on X this quote: "The political elite are manipulating the system to install another go-along to get along lapdog as state comptroller." What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, I'm focused really on my campaign. I'm focused on traveling across the state of Texas, talking to voters, listening to them from McAllen to Amarillo to Houston and San Antonio and all the points in between. I'm asking them what their experience with the comptroller. I'm educating them about the comptroller's position. And look, this was a manipulation of the process. There's no question about it, by the establishment, Bush wing of the Republican Party. And I think the voters are going to see through that, and that's why I'm going to win.
Now, you have been backed by Senator Ted Cruz, among other conservatives. I know Hancock is now backed by Governor Abbott. And Governor Abbott, in his endorsement of Hancock last week, said that, quote, "I endorse Kelly Hancock because I want a candidate who will actually win the election, not someone who has already lost an election to a Democrat," referring to your loss to Nathan Johnson several years ago. I know you ran against the governor back in 2022. Do you have a response to what he said?
I'm focused on my race. I really am. I mean, when I won the Senate race, I did something that had never been done before. I knocked out a 20-year plus incumbent in the Republican primary. It was unprecedented, never had happened before when I won. And I'm just really continuing to focus on talking to the voters.
And when you say that you want to doge the comptroller's office, what exactly do you mean by that?
I don't want to just doge the comptroller's office. I'm going to doge every agency I can in the state of Texas, And what that means is audit government. It means root out fraud, waste, and abuse. And it means get great transparency and return the savings I find to the taxpayers, hopefully via property tax relief.
The other big new function that the Texas Comptroller's office is going to have is not only overseeing the $1 billion school choice program that lawmakers just passed, the education savings accounts, but the office in the next year is going to have to stand it up, create it.
I'm very excited about that. When I was in the legislature, I was the first legislator to write a school choice program that incorporated ESAs, education savings accounts. I spent a lot of time on it, and we got that bill out of the Texas Senate. I'm passionate about education freedom. The comptroller's in charge of the waiting list, the marketing of the program, implementing it with the 5 management companies that are going to be managing up to 100,000 ESA accounts. And it's incredibly important that we don't stumble and we get this correct.
Members of Congress from North Texas weigh in on what's next after the U.S. bombing of Iran when Eye on Politics returns. Many legal victories at the U.S. Supreme Court for President Trump, including one that came last week. Justices lifted a lower court order that stopped the administration from deporting migrants to countries other than where they came from. Sarah Jenkins has this week's brief.
Trump's administration previously approached Costa Rica, Panama, and Rwanda about accepting migrants who were not their citizens. It had already entered into an arrangement with El Salvador to detain Venezuelan migrants who it claims are gang members. The president has overseen a sweeping immigration crackdown since he returned to the White House for a second term. His administration moved to end a temporary protected status program that shielded 350 Venezuelan migrants from deportation and to revoke the legal status of about 500,000 migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. For The Brief, I'm Sarah Jenkins.
Thank you, Sarah. Now to the U.S. attack of Iran's nuclear weapons sites, which multiple U.S. and international agencies say has sustained very severe damage. We spoke with Republican North Texas Congressman Pat Fallon about the mission.
It's obvious that Iran's nuclear program is a lot worse off today than it was just a few weeks ago. And this is the nation state that's the largest state sponsor of terror in the world. They're responsible for the death of over 600 U.S. service members in Iraq. So this is a regime that definitely needed to be curtailed, and we don't want to see them go nuclear. I think President Trump took the right action. It was a decisive action. I'm glad that there's now a ceasefire. Iran has been crippled not only in their nuclear capacity, but in their air defense. Israel really was very effective in their attacks.
Do you trust Iran not to rebuild its nuclear weapon sites? And what should the U.S. do to make sure that Iran doesn't?
I 100% do not trust the theocratic authoritarian regime in Tehran. Absolutely not. Any agreement that we have moving forward has to be verifiable with the International Atomic Energy Agency, and that's complete, open, and unfettered access. Otherwise, it's not worth the paper that it's written on.
79 Democrats in the House voted this week to impeach President Trump. Your thoughts?
Well, when you do that math, that means that a majority of even the Democrats have some sanity. That would be roughly about 130, give or take, that didn't vote to impeach. That was an absurd vote. It's just throwing slop to the extreme left.
Congresswoman Julie Johnson of Farmers Branch also discussed the U.S. military action with me.
We don't want a nuclearized Iran, right? That is a full stop. Nobody wants Iran to possess nuclear weapons. And so obviously the president felt like they needed to intervene, that Israel obviously had taken those steps. The men and women of our military executed the mission that the president had for them. Seems like they executed it well. Thrilled that there's a ceasefire. That's what we want. We want peace in the region.
Do you trust Iran going forward not to rebuild?
You know, I think we always have to be suspicious. Their intent, they're a very hostile power to the United States. They're a hostile power to Israel and their right to exist. They have been an enemy of this country for many years. So I don't think we can trust them to do anything at this point.
There was a vote on a resolution by Congressman Al Green of Houston to impeach the president over this situation. You were one of 5 Democrats in Texas to vote to table that.
Right.
Why did you feel that this was not necessary?
Well, we don't have the votes to impeach the president. And so that's just simple as that. You know, Democrats have tried that path. They've sung that song twice now, unsuccessfully. And it just creates diversion from the message that Democrats have that's really permeating through the people of this country.
And don't forget, you can watch all the full interviews from our lawmakers today on the CBS Texas YouTube page. And once you're there, please hit the subscribe button. That's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next week. Happy 4th of July on Friday. And from all of us here, have a great Sunday.